Gian. Okay, we're streaming. So calling the meeting to order. I'll be a temporary chair until we complete the election. I'll now open the floor for nomination to board chair. Helen Claire.
Yes, Dr. Ara, before we go any further, I'm struggling a little to hear you. Is it possible to turn up at your end? I am beside a fan, otherwise I'll try to move myself here.
Maybe let me try to sit here.
If we move that, is it?
Would this work? Is this better? Is this better?
It is better, thank you, yes.
Thank you. So I'll be a temporary chair for the election of the chair of the board. I will open the floor for nomination for the board chair. Helen Claire.
Thank you. I nominate Alan Barfoot as chair. It's been a challenging term, and I think he's done a very good job as vice chair, and having him move on to the chair position would help ensure a smooth transition and maintain some consistency on the board. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Is there anyone to second that motion?
I will second that motion.
Are there any other nominations?
Yes.
Mr. Ivoli?
I'd like to nominate Luke Charbonneau.
Is there anybody to second that motion?
I would second that motion. It's Kenneth Craig speaking.
Is there any other nominations? Is there any other nominations? A third time, is there any other nomination? Can I have a motion to close nominations? Mr. Millen closed the nomination with a motion. Mr. Barfoot, do you accept the nomination for chair?
I'd like to thank my nominator and seconder, and yes, I will let my name stand. Thank you.
Mr. Barfoot accepted the nomination. Mr. Charbonneau, do you accept the nomination?
I do.
Mr. Charbonneau accepted the nomination. So now we will, I believe, start the election process. For people in the room, they can use a ballot. For people online, can email Kelly, the MOH admin email with their nomination, and it will be kept confidential. It can be done as well through the Zoom if you direct the nomination or the vote directly to Kelly, not to the entire group.
Private message.
Private message.
Yep.
Yeah, please do that on private, because I was on the other day. And somebody voted and they voted everybody.
Oh, that's exactly why I said what I said.
Thank you.
No. But he was voting and he showed it to everybody.
Oh.
Did you get like against Sam? There's 12 years. When she's been there for 12 years, I've been there, I was there for 11 and a half, so it doesn't reset it in time.
It never resets. You never reset it again.
Really? I didn't know that.
They changed it.
They made that rule for you.
Yeah, it had it at 10, and it moved it up to 12. It's you're showing 100 days. He turned it 12. John Thompson from Hanson here.
Right.
Three of them. And then so we can John. We. And the Haddish or McSweeney. Fonzo.
It was on.
Before, oh, yeah, that's back even before nomination, she was on. And she said, yeah, she only served 3 years. As zone. That's the zone.
We're still live streaming.
Oh,
Yes.
it's information, it's public information.
This week, 2 more votes.
Are they in the chat?
No, I only got one in the chat. from-
Sorry.
Oh, hang on.
Didn't have the glasses on.
That'll happen for a while. Sure.
But it came out of the hole, but it was. Yeah. I was in there.
Yeah, there's no.
Way back on one.
Not yet.
Okay.
Yeah, there's a few of those.
Yeah, I mean, some of the mail and whatever that comes in. Whatever.
Said I was fine. They sit in some chairs. Said I'll be matches. Right.
Watch.
We don't have a deal yet on operating. Construction.
Wait for his little bit. Ready for skating?
Well, there's a couple of days where just got them skipped enough that even the geese couldn't land on it. They were breaking through. So, yeah. And not many days though.
Health and safety, we don't want people skating out of Chesley Lake.
Are we still waiting?
I'm waiting on one more vote.
We're waiting on one more vote. I wonder if people typed it, didn't send it, or
Nick doesn't look very.
Nick doesn't vote.
So it's someone on Zoom. Is it possible to message that?
I did.
Okay.
Can we tell them if it's checking if it is?
Can you please check your messages? The person who didn't vote received a message.
Like Zoom message or email?
We can see your screen.
Oh, sorry.
Okay. There we go.
So it seems we received all the votes. Need to count.
Okay.
So, Mr. Barfoot was elected and is the acting chair of the board. Do I need to mention the number of votes or no? Mr. Barfoot, to the acting board chair, congratulations. I'll turn the meeting to you.
I'd like to thank my nominator and seconder and thank Sue Patterson for her last 2 years as chair. It's there's an awful lot went on in the last 2 years and Sue, I'm not sure we would have got through it without your guidance on that. So thank you very much for all your help there. And welcome to the new board members. Mr. Eccles is back again after having previously been on the board, and Ken, welcome to you as on the new Bruce County representatives. And Nick, I understand everything is still in progress for your nomination to become a provincial appointee, so hopefully that comes through very soon. It's a painstaking process. Trust me, because I went through that as well for it to finally come through. So anyway, hopefully yours comes through very soon.
It's only been a year and a half, Chair.
To Lottie as well, Ian, welcome to the board. You'll, I'm sure you'll enjoy your time on here. It's a great board to be able to be on, and certainly lots goes through this. So anyway, welcome to everyone. So we'll now go through the process then of electing a vice chair. So open the floor for nominations for someone for vice chair. Sue?
I'd like to nominate Helen Claire Tingling.
Okay, do I have a seconder for
Second that.
Warden Milne seconds the nomination for Helen Claire? I'll ask a second time, are there any nominations for vice chair? Okay, I'll ask a third time, any nominations for vice chair? Helen Claire? Oh, you're on mute.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I nominate Warden Milne for vice chair.
Okay, I think that was twice it is. I'll ask one more time. Are there any more nominations than for vice chair? So I need a motion then to close nominations.
We need a seconder.
Sorry, I'm sorry for not seconder for nomination for Warden Milne. Seconder. Kevin Eccles. Thank you. So then I'll now ask for a motion then to close nominations by Luke Charbonneau. All in favor? That's carried. Helen Claire, will you let your name stand for vice chair?
I'm honored by my colleagues, and I respectfully decline. I don't think the board is best served by having both executive positions, chair and vice chair, filled by provincial nominees. So once again, thank you. I'm really honored by my colleagues, but I respectfully decline this position.
Okay, thank you. Warden Milne, do you accept the nomination as vice chair?
Interesting turn of events, but yes, I'll let my name stand. Thank you. I'll thank my nominator And my seconder, thank you.
Okay. So we now have a new vice chair. Any, moving on, and any amendments to the agenda? Seeing none, need a motion for approval of the agenda. Wharton Milne, seconder.
If we can just make a friendly amendment to the item 11, just the wording to add the reference the act with the item itself.
For the in-camera.
Correct.
Okay.
So the same wording, just add reference similar to the agenda that went for the hearing.
Okay. Okay, that's duly noted.
Do you wish to have that motion as amended, or do you want it the way it is?
Be as amended.
I'm good with that, thank you.
Okay. All in favor? Carried. Any disclosure of pecuniary interest? Seeing none, adoption of the minutes of Friday, October the 28th. And the mover to adopt those minutes, please, by Sue Patterson, seconded by Luke Charbonneau. Any discussion on those minutes? Nothing. All in favor? That's carried. Correspondence and news releases. Anything gonna come on, Dr. Herrera?
That will be myself, Mr. Chair.
Okay, sure. Turn it for you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So we have two correspondence, two items on the correspondence list. One of them is a letter related to the Healthy Baby, Healthy Children funding, and it is very similar to other letters that the board endorsed for other boards across the province. So my recommendation is to retrieve. The second one is to a letter from to the premier from one of the health units to inclusion of the language interpretation services for the dental program. My recommendation, although I'm very supportive of the initiative itself, my recommendation is to receive, since that the change is relatively minimal and most likely will pass, and there is no need to use our political capital on an item that is technical, more or less. Those are my recommendation. Open to questions as always.
Okay, so that will move then to receive the correspondence. Luke Charbonneau, seconded by Kevin Eccles. Any further discussion then on the correspondence? Kevin Eccles?
What's the interpretation portion of it coming from the Peterborough Public Health? How much is that even required in Grey Bruce? And the other thing that on a personal basis, I've been doing some work with the Ukrainian, and it was the group that we were dealing with was one of our problems certainly was communication, the interpreters. And funny enough, or coincidental, one of the families is living very close by to me, and they said, Google Translate is, I mean, technology has moved it. That it was one of their fears, and they said Google Translate is just perfect. It works. So I guess what I'm thinking is translators are becoming redundant because of technology. So just a point.
Through Mr. Chair, just to further comment, I would agree definitely with the comments about the first part. How much is this affecting Grey Bruce? We look at bigger health units like Peel or Toronto, that they have a very large number of newcomers who might use these services, and that's probably where the benefit is. For Grey Bruce, we have a smaller number, and I know firsthand that there is support in Grey Bruce for these families. So anytime there is a need for a certain interpretation, it would be there with the sponsors, whether it's family or community. The second part of the comment, the technology has advanced and definitely will allow interpretation on many levels. In the dental or the medical interpretation, we always want the precise interpretation. So depending on the technologies might be depending on the level of sensitivity of the interaction with the healthcare provider. But we're not talking here about all the healthcare interpreters, rather a very narrow sliver of the dental services that provides through the health unit. And the healthcare system has interpreters that are available. And the request in this letter is just to connect this narrow sliver with the rest of the healthcare system.
Okay, answer your question?
Yeah, just one further comment. I could use one of those interpreters when I'm in the chair at a dentist office and he keeps trying to ask me questions. Oh.
Okay, just we haven't called the vote yet. All in favor then to accept the correspondence? That's carried. News releases. Dr. Aaron.
That would be within.
So, Denis, welcome aboard.
Hello, thank you. And through you, Mr. Chair, there are 7 media releases on today's agenda. 2 of them, one issued on October 28th and another November 4th, related to the pandemic and included information on the state of the pandemic at that time and recommendations on how residents can protect themselves and others from the virus, such as staying home while sick and staying up to date on vaccinations. Public Health also issued a pair of media releases on December 8th and November 4th to alert the public about fatal overdoses in Grey Bruce. Both releases urge people who use drugs to practice critical harm reduction strategies and assume all street drugs are toxic. On November 1st, Public Health issued a media release to advise people that flu vaccines are now available in Grey Bruce via primary care providers, pharmacies, and at Public Health. A media release issued November 15th informed the public about a pilot project spearheaded by Public Health aimed at educating people about the issue of home takeovers and the development of local response tools to address this problem. And Public Health also issued a media release November 30th to advise the public about a project of the South Bruce Safe Communities Committee, of which Grey Bruce Health Unit is co-lead, to map the location of life-saving AEDs in Grey Bruce. And that concludes the news releases.
Thanks, Denis. I have a mover to receive the news releases, please. Word Milne, second by Ian Body. Any further discussion? Word Milne.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just in relation to the last news release there, or press release rather, the automated external defibrillator, that list, how accurate will it be? Like, will it come up? How would someone access that if they needed to know where there is an AED? Like, is that intended to be in the case of an emergency that somebody would be looking for one, or what's the purpose of the mapping exercise?
Mr. Chair, to ensure that there is sufficient number in the community that all services that would benefit from it already has it. The distribution of these devices and the increase has been generically done during the community, and people would usually want to do over and beyond and have it. But having that mapping to ensure completeness, to identify gaps, to identify when the devices could be updated, or so there could be many benefits to it. It's not directly related to public health per se, but we're taking the lead on the committee to ensure this work is done.
Thanks, sir.
Thanks for your question. Okay, any further discussion then regarding the news releases? Call the vote then, all in favor? That carries. Now to the medical officer health update. First, 801 MOH update, Dr. Era.
Certainly. So if we can put the slides. I wonder if somebody from the online can let me know if they can hear my voice clear, or I should switch to a different. Okay, thank you. So Kelly, if you can put the slides, thank you. So this is the scorecard provincial data on COVID. It was published December 17 or sent to us December 7, sorry. And it reflects the data from usually the 2 to 3 weeks, depending on the type of data. So if you can go to the next slide, please. In general, all metrics are decreasing, whether it's case, death, hospitalization, ICU. The positivity rate, as I mentioned before, it's a variable that has different aspects to it. Despite the fact that cases are decreasing, the positivity can be increased depending on the number of people tested, and it's not to be interpreted in this form. Rather, I put a slide for its interpretation at the very end. So this is as good as it gets for the season to see the transmission and the surge in COVID. If we can go to the next slide, just a metric nationally and internationally, different jurisdictions, and you can see Ontario is the fourth one to the right. The green is the decreasing, the blue is increasing. So in relative terms, Ontario is in a very good standing at this point. And if we can go to the next, please. This is a map of the hotspot. The darker the color, the more transmission there is. And this is for the south, this is for the north part of the province. And I included it just to highlight the point that usually people say it's rural area and that's why there is less transmission. We can see the most rural part in the province is higher transmission, and there are many variables that come into the equation for the transmission. We can go to the next one. This is a graph showing all health units. Again, the green is decreasing, and it's worth noting that the graph, the y-axis does not start with 0, rather 20 cases per 100,000. And this is based on the surveillance only in the high risk area, but it's a proxy to what's going on in the community. Grey Bruce during this time period decreased from around 50 cases to around 20 cases. Again, the difference between health unit is really not significant in general. Most of them is around the same average, and this is reassuring too. And the final slide is about the positivity, test positivity. This is one way to interpret it and look at the colors and see there isn't a signal provincially that shows change from the previous weeks. If any, it's a bit darker, which is a bit less positivity. The darkness here is the opposite. The lighter is more transmission. And that's my update on the COVID front, Mr. Chair.
Thanks, Dr. Era. We'll move then 8.2 then, the public health modernization update. What we were saying.
Mr. Chair, before you move on, I just wonder if Dr. because I see it's part of his report, I assume it's part of his report, is press release from GBHU on the declaration of emergency on the First Nation. At least it's very fun. And was that intended to be part of your report, or are you giving an update on that at some other point?
That would be under the 8.3, the
Okay.
opiate.
All right, so we'll talk about that. I just wondered. Thank you.
So, Mr. Chair, the 8.2, the modernization remains dormant and standing.
Okay, thank you. 8.3.
The update on the opioid situation in Grey Bruce, two main parts of the update. The first one is the work that the health unit is doing and led by Dr. Zaid continues. In next meeting, we'll present detailed update about it. But in general, there's not much change from the plan that we had and the progress that we had over the past few months. The second part is related to the declaration of emergency from the Saugeen First Nation. We sit around the table for a task force for the First Nation community that was struck last week. We sit as an advisor, and we continue to support the community in building its capacity and facilitate the interventions that public health recommends there. One of the interventions is to distribute naloxone not only in the health through the health community center, but all departments from the for the First Nation community, whether it's the fire department or the road department. And for that, we needed to get an exemption from the provincial level. Proactively, I had communicated with the province to escalate the declaration of emergency to their support or to their focus. To my delight, they approved the exemption yesterday, and we are ready to deploy an extra number of nurses to the community to do the training and provide this life-saving measure. The statistical and epidemiological support is there, and we have been supporting the task force with this. Outreach support as well is there. And the advocacy, whether on the provincial level or the connection liaison with local jurisdictions, a number of the local jurisdictions, the municipalities have expressed their support and willingness to support. Mayor Charbonneau was proactively offering all of that. And obviously he's here, he can comment further on it. But connecting the task force with the different sources of resources is one of the functions that we provide or we can help with. And we'll continue to update the board on the progress of that front. You follow up?
I was wondering, Dr., if you have some idea or some comment on, the First Nation declared an emergency, obviously the situation from their perspective is very serious there. There's been some deaths and so, I mean, that is very serious. How much more serious is the situation of First Nation and say the rest of Bruce County or the rest of Great Bruce? Like, I was trying to get the concept because obviously the opioid situation is a serious problem across society. And I just want to get a sense in terms of scale, how much more serious is the problem specifically at Saugeen First Nation?
Certainly, through you, Mr. Chair. I will, for example, share the numbers that were shared by the First Nation. There is limitation on what we collect and what we use, and that's related to the OCAP principle. OCAP is an acronym for ownership, custodian, and other functions that any data or statistics related to the First Nation community should be owned and by the community. So with the limited data that we have, and it's mainly not limited, we have data, but it's within their privy to share. What I know that they shared recently, 2 days ago, the number of overdose based on the paramedic services, and we provided this data to them. In 2018, there were 5 overdose, not lethal, all of them. 2019, there were 9. 2020, 16, 21, 38, 2022, 25 so far. So you can see from 9 on average, or 5 to 9 before the pandemic, to 38, 25 to around 30. This is a 3-fold increase. Provincially and in Great Bruce, there was an increase almost a double. And in 2022, this year, we've seen a decrease almost to not to the pre-pandemic, but significant decrease by 70%. So we didn't see this decrease in the First Nation, and the increase was significant enough. I don't know if this provide that lens of what's going on.
Yeah, well, I mean, Mr. Chair, I think that's because the context, I think, is really important. I guess the one thing I would say, I'm very glad, I just wanted to offer my appreciation for your efforts there. I understand it's not within the jurisdiction of the health unit, but I think we have a responsibility as a health unit to be there. We surround that jurisdiction, and it has an impact on, First Nation doesn't have the healthcare capacity at all to help to deal with these problems. So it really is on our systems in the rest of the community to, whether it's paramedics or hospitals or the health unit, to be there and really standing by and offering whatever assistance we can. It's their prerogative as to whether they want to take it, but we need to be there offering it. And so I'm very appreciative of the fact that you are. Obviously, it's a matter of great concern in the town of Saugeen Shores and the county of Bruce, because they are our neighbors and their issues are our issues. So anyway, I just appreciate your update and ask that we continue to be updated, and that you have a good connection there. So whatever offers of assistance you can provide on behalf of the rest of us, obviously we're always there to help. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Chair, if I can just double down on what was said, it's a really important point. The jurisdiction, the First Nation is independent nation, and they have authority on the jurisdiction. The responsibility for providing healthcare and support is federal, and there's the First Nation, the FINIB, it's a First Nation branch from the federal government to support the jurisdiction. It is, as you mentioned, because of proximity and because of doing the right thing to help the community build their capacity. We are on standby, and again, to my delight, the provincial level has expressed their willingness to support as well, and they have shown that in the first step.
Luke, thanks for bringing that forward, and I think as you alluded to in your comments, they are part of Grey Bruce, so they're certainly part of our within our, not technically within our jurisdiction, but they're within our geographic part, so we need to be there to support them as well.
Just one of the things here, they declared a state of emergency. They, a big part of the reason why they declared a state of emergency is to bring attention to the issue. It's a way to draw the attention of those provincial federal partners. I guess would say if there's anything the Board of Health can do to back them up and advocating with those levels of government. Sounds like you were already doing that work and had some success, but at any point, I would suggest, Mr. Chair, that if the board can be of assistance in that advocacy, we should be, and I'm sure Dr. Aaron will voice in that direction if those opportunities arise.
Good, thank you. Anything else then on that matter before you move to the next one? Okay, seeing nothing, then next, then. Sorry, Helen Claire.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It's very sad to understand what's happening with our neighbors, and I very much appreciate my colleagues' comments. As it is on the micro, it is on the macro, and right across the board over the last year, diverse organizations, formal and informal, have approached the province or more formally passed resolutions, even including this health board, requesting that the province reinstate the Ontario Opioid Emergency Task Force. I recall as diverse as the Police Chiefs Association of Ontario as well. So we've had a lot of support to have this initiative reinstated. And I'm just wondering, my colleagues will bear with me, I bring it up every time, has there been anything from the province indicating that they may indeed put this important body back into play? Thank you, Mr. Chair.
See, Nick's got his hand up. Nick, you wanted to comment on that?
No, I was going to make another comment. I'll let you answer their chair first.
Sure. Okay, then we'll go back to you, Nick. Dr. Air, do you want to comment too? Well, to be honest, I didn't realize that group wasn't still going. That you're referring to Helen Claire. I thought that task force was still an ongoing active group.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I know that recommendation went to the province about the task force. Our letter went there as well separately. We didn't receive direct response to our letter, but the work on the provincial level, whether it's through Public Health Ontario in collaboration with the 11 health units, and there's as the board knows there, but for the benefit of the new members, Grey Bruce is co-chairing with the Public Health Ontario this group of 10 other health units. So there's this work happening there, and I know it is supported by the province, but there has not been, like Helen Claire rightly said, there has not been direct response to our asks.
Okay, Helen Claire, does that answer your question? Unfortunately, it's not the answer we wanted to hear, but anyway. Okay, Nick, we'll go to you then on your question, Nick.
It's not really a question, it's more of a statement, and I'd like to thank Luke and others that have reached out to Saugeen First Nation to be able to help our sister community in this time and state of emergency that they're going through. This state of emergency, and I've talked to Dr. Ayer about it before as well, it is not just the First Nation that's going through this. However, it's more noticeable within our First Nations because we are small, tight-knit communities. I think it's important to put out there that it's not just the health unit that needs to work on this, it's also our local hospitals. So many times our people go into the local hospitals to get help and our local hospitals turn our people away, stating that it's not a mental health, that it's a drug issue, and they cannot receive the help that they need in order to proceed to recover from those addictions that they are going through. I take, for instance, a young lady that I was dealing with just recently, where she was turned away from the hospital 3 times. 3 times she's been trying to go to treatment. And our local hospitals turned her away, stating that it was not a mental health, it was addictions. It was up to her in order to change her mindset and change her way of life. Our young lady, we worked with her. I think I was asked to leave the hospital 3 times because I wasn't recognized as a counselor or as an elder of our community in wanting to work with this young lady. I still proceeded to get her the help that she needed. She is now sitting at 120 days clean because we got her into a treatment center up in the Kingston area. And if it wasn't for us pushing and paying for that privately, she would not have got to where she is right now. And I think that collectively as a whole of this table, I think that we need to put a stronger push because it's our voices that are going to help to make that change and to help fix this opioid pandemic that is going on and so seeing so much tragic loss within our own communities. And I'll just leave it at that. And I thank you for allowing me that time to speak.
Thanks very much, Nick. And that's a great segment of a success story within there with that individual. That's great to hear, Dr. Aaron.
I wonder, Mr. Chair, based on the comments from Helen Claire about the letter we sent to the province and the comments from Nick about the local situation, if the board would wish to direct the staff to write a letter to either or both parties in a way that might support the First Nation and the Grey Bruce community.
Okay, so the 2 parties then would be, you're referring to send the letters to would be which organization?
Follow up to the province, and if the experience from the First Nation is with the hospital system, it will be the 3 hospitals in Grey Bruce.
Okay, everyone okay with that?
That's a great idea.
Okay, Helen Claire had your hand up.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Just to reiterate, these are the kinds of things that we need to work at as a community, not necessarily just the Public Health Board, but the task force could do more work to destigmatize and also to help erode this terrible ignorance. You know, addiction is a mental health issue. They're not 2 different streams. They're the same stream and often comes from childhood trauma. I just wanted to say that, and to wonder to Dr. Ara's point, Mr. Chair, if it might be useful also to add the federal government, the appropriate federal government party to that letter. Thank you.
Okay, so Helen Claire's asking for also then to go to the federal government and as well as what you're indicating, Helen Claire, like the other 2 bodies that we discussed, plus then to the federal government as well.
If it's appropriate, Mr. Chair, I would take Dr. Ara's recommendation on that. Thank you.
Okay. Gordon Beeline?
I'm a bit frustrated by the whole piecemeal nature of this. We've got a bunch of different agencies spending a lot of money on this, and the problem seems to be getting worse. No fault to any of them. I wondered if I know they appointed a minister of addictions just recently. Is that person supposed to be the lead of the provincial government? Is that who we contact and pressure to take the lead on this and coordinate things?
Through you, Mr. Chair, the letter that was sent to the ministry was directed to the Minister of Health and the Minister of Mental Health and Addiction, and that's the same office that we will connect with and most likely CC the rest of the partners that we just listed.
Yeah, I just wonder if that minister is going to step up. push this hard. I did ask for a meeting with Roma, the Brockton side, to see what their position is on this, and what funding their jurisdiction, areas. Push that account to.
Sure. Okay. Word mill.
I just think it would be helpful to copy the local MPP and MP as well, if they haven't been already.
For you, Mr. Chair, most certainly the MPPs will be notified ahead of time to utilize the letter in their own discussions. We will connect with the chiefs from both the First Nations to get their approval or direction in what they see fit to include as well.
Is the board okay with just taking this as direction, then Dr. will then send those letters out to the appropriate agencies?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we'll move on then to 8.4.
Mr. Chair, this is a report on the Immunization of School People's Act in Ontario. This act would require students attending schools in Ontario, specific age, to provide evidence of immunity, which could be the infection of the disease or the vaccine, or a valid medical exemption or non-medical exemption. And the list of the diseases that are preventable under this act includes measles, mumps, rubella, many of the diseases that public health managed to significantly reduce in the community. The stats come from 2018-19, before the pandemic, and historically, many of this work has shown its benefit. The average vaccination for these diseases in Grey Bruce was above Ontario average during the pandemic. Even the collection of the data, let alone the focus on ensuring this data is complete, has been affected. We definitely continue to provide some of that work, but during the recovery, we have been focusing to ensure that this backlog of vaccine administration and collection of the data on exemptions to be completed by September 23. So next September, we should be in very good standing closing that gap, and most likely we will be again above the required provincial average. We can provide more details on the data from 20 and 21 and 22 in future meetings, Chair, but in general, this is part of the report that comes to the board about the immunization level in the schools.
Okay, thanks, Doctor. Any questions then on this report? Word mill.
What is the provincial target, Dr. Aaron, for those various?
I wonder, through you, Mr. Chair, Kelly, if you can put the report up. Each one of these diseases has a specific threshold. Obviously, our goal is to go as to close to 100% as much as we can. I'm not sure if we can see it there. I can see it on my computer, but not on your TV. So, for example, for measles, the threshold is 92 to prevent transmission, to prevent outbreaks. We are at 94, the provincial average is 86. And each one of these diseases, again, has different threshold. Grey Bruce historically was above that threshold protection for all diseases.
I was going to say we're above on all of them.
Correct, yeah. There's one, the 96 rubella. We are 96, the provincial is 96.1, practically the same. But again, the 96 is way above what the rubella would threshold would be.
Good, thank you.
Luke?
I think it's interesting to note though that like on measles, you say the threshold is 92. And so in province-wide, we're at 86.6. How many of those provincial numbers are falling below the threshold to avoid transmission?
I can look at these thresholds again. They're not for all of them, but again, this is a threshold under which there is a risk of transmission. But if there isn't the bug that's gonna cause it, like we've heard 4 years ago, 3-4 years ago about outbreaks in the United States among the Amish and Mennonite community. So that's an example that the measles, rubella, mumps have not left. They're dormant so long that we're above that threshold or close to it.
Yeah, and I guess my question is just sort of more of a general question, like, are we, how is the province performing in terms of that? Like, if we're at 86.2 province wide on polio, are we at risk of seeing a resurgence of polio in Ontario at a rate like that? I'm not asking specifically about polio, you know what I'm saying, like, are we at risk on some of these ones? We're fairly at risk on measles because we're provincially below that target, like, what's your overall assessment of the situation?
Through Mr. Chair, I shy away from commenting on the provincial level. I don't sit at that table, and for many good reasons. Technically, too, if you break those numbers by area, it will provide different level of risk. If a bigger jurisdiction, a big city, has a lower than average, there is way higher chance, especially if there is a travel component of it to other parts of the world, versus a smaller community in a rural area. Even if one under that jurisdiction, a Mennonite or Amish, might not be the travel between that community and other community to increase that risk. So again, I would take it with a big grain of salt, just the number itself.
We build a wall and get Toronto to pay for it, that would solve the problem.
It's worked in the past.
Exactly. Anything else then on what Doctor has presented between 8.1 and 8.4? Okay, seeing nothing, now we're on to corporate services. Kim Rutherford, welcome, Kim, and we've got 2 months worth of data to present to us. So go ahead, Kim. Sorry.
We need a motion.
Do you need a motion to accept?
Dr. Ayers' report.
Okay, so could I have a mover by Kevin Heckles, seconded by Luke Charbonneau, that we accept medical officer health updates then as per the agenda. Any further discussion on that? All in favor? That's carried. Very Kim.
All right. For you, Mr. Chair, we'll start with the September financial update. So the first item is just an update about the OMERS pension plan that we have at the health unit here. So currently all of our full-time employees are automatically enrolled in OMERS upon hire. That's changing January 1st, 2023, so that all employees, even if they're part-time, contract, temporary, they will be eligible to enroll in OMERS. This is an OMERS change, not a health unit change. So we're required to follow the OMERS Act. So this is just a piece that's being pushed down to us from OMERS. So our finance team is currently working to roll that out to all employees that are impacted by this change, so that we'll have it implemented by January 1st of next year.
Word known.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Is the notion that everybody's in or everybody's out, or is it?
The notion is that everyone is in. So if you're permanent full-time, you don't really have an option. You're automatically enrolled. If you're contract or temporary, you do have the option. You can say yes or no, but everyone is at least given the option now.
Right. Okay, thank you.
Gordon Peabody.
Yeah, that's an interesting change. I had heard that's going to affect all of us, all our departments. And was there any consultation from OMERS with the public sector employers on this?
Through Mr. Chair, not really. There was a lot of advance notice, like this is coming, this is going to happen. But consult and like how they would roll it out. There's a little bit of consultation, but say as into whether or not this was going to happen and people would become eligible, we didn't really get a say in that.
So we're just going to have to put about 10% in. We will. Then the employee puts 10 in.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Chair. Yes, it's a matching pension.
Kevin.
But just in saying that part-time, if they were on part-time and built up enough hours in the old system, they would have qualified, they could qualify. Am I right on that? This is basically an enhancement that as soon as you start on part-time, you can be enrolled.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Chair. Yes. So there was eligibility requirements before. I think it was after 700 hours. You would become eligible. So those kind of the eligibility requirements are now waived. You would just become eligible upon employment.
Yeah.
Okay.
The other update was that September was also the due date for the payment of the second installment of the nurse retention bonus under the temporary retention incentive for nurses program. So our finance team met that requirement and we've completed the necessary reporting for that. For the financials for September, so at the end of September, we had a surplus of $447,000. We continue to be in good financial shape. Our mandatory programs and COVID costs continue to be fully funded. And we have access to additional COVID extraordinary funding. And it's already been approved by the Ministry of Health, should we require it in the last quarter of the year. The majority of the surplus continues to be from the seniors dental program. We started to see a large increase in the spending in the last few months, as many clients on our wait list have been seen at the dental clinics and denturists throughout Grey Bruce that we've partnered with. And we've also been able to purchase items for the new Walkerton clinic and cover some of our project management costs for that capital project using the surplus. Looking at our funding and our revenues, the COVID extraordinary funding continues to be the main variance in our revenue line. We continue to require significantly less extraordinary funding to cover our costs than we expected. And that aligns with the variance in our wages and benefits. So we budgeted with the assumption that the extraordinary funding would cover overtime and weekend work, and the amount of overtime and weekend work for 2022 has been a lot less than we forecasted. For September, the only notable expense to disclose was the purchase of tablets. So we went through a formal request for tender process in September. A successful bidder was awarded and that purchase was completed that month. For the Walkerton dental project, we finalized the lease for the new clinic in Walkerton. So 200 McNabb Street will be the location that we will be renovating for the new dental clinic. We get access to the space starting in April, and we're hoping to have everything coordinated so that we can start renovation shortly after getting access to the space.
Okay, any questions for Kim? Word and Peabody.
I just wanted to thank Dr. Era and compliment staff for doing hard work on the dental clinic. It's go to the site ticker in high school in Walkerton, and everybody's very excited about that. I know we've had some tough negotiations with the site and the renovations, and got through that all, and it's exciting for everybody to sell that.
Any questions for Kim? Dr.
Just a comment on the surplus in the dental program. There was a plan that we started executing to utilize the funding, the 300,000 for dental chairs. The supply chain resulted in a delay of the delivery of these chairs for, correct me if I'm wrong, 10 months.
Yeah.
So that will be in next year, and we will not be able to use this funding. There could be a very small chance if we ask the ministry to allow exemption like they did in the previous year to carry part of this or all of it if we can. But again, we'll do our best, and we're hoping for it to go through with the notion that's a very small chance for success.
Okay, so we need a motion to accept the financials moved by Word and Peabody. Did I see Ian Body's hand up there to second that? I thought I'd seen that. All in favor? That's carried. Thanks, Kim. So now we're down to other business.
We just missed October.
You do October.
Oh, I'm sorry. We're thinking both of them.
I appreciate you.
I apologize.
Yeah.
It's a good break and get another. I mean, no.
Pick on the chair first. Okay. Go ahead, Jim.
So, Mr. Chair, this is the October financial update. It'll be somewhat similar to the September one. So we continued at the end of October to have our mandatory programs and all of our COVID expenses fully funded. We've utilized 600,000 in the COVID extraordinary funding to cover our costs. And as I mentioned before, we have approval for additional COVID funding if we need it. The surplus continues to be from two areas, the seniors dental program and our non-Ministry of Health programs. The seniors dental program saw the first decrease in the surplus this month. So we had a 7.5% decrease in the surplus as we started to see the costs of all those partnerships with the dentists and denturists and the operating rooms. As we've been pushing lots of clients on our wait list through, we've started to see those large bills and invoices come in. So that's resulted in the decrease in the surplus, which is good. That means that we're seeing people and they're getting the care that they need. And we've also had some of those larger dental items that we've been trying to purchase. They start to come in-house. We've started to actually get those expenses on the books. So we're hoping, and we should continue to see that surplus decrease for the remainder of the year. And then 2023 going forward, we should be back to kind of normal operations with that program. Looking at our funding and our revenues, the COVID extraordinary funding continues to be the main item that's under budget. And our wages and benefits continue to be similarly under budget. For operating expenses, you'll see the significant increase in the dental program service line. So that's where you see the dental contracts and the dentures costs being reflected in our financials. And under the materials and supplies, that's where we're seeing the large capital purchases for the Walkerton Clinic. That's where that's being captured. And another update for the Walkerton Dental Project. So Colliers is the project management firm we've hired for the clinic. So they're preparing the formal bid documents for the construction component of the job. We met with them this past week. They've developed a very detailed timeline of all the tasks that will be completed, a very detailed budget, and a project plan. So things are, very well organized, very well thought out at this point for the completion of this project.
Hey, other questions for Kim?
So I have a question, but I think it's for Dr. Era. How difficult is it to obtain a denturist and a dentist? Are there lots out there, or is it a difficult requirement?
Depending on the qualification of the program, if a person qualifies, we support them in completing that application, and we have contract with a number of dentists to complete the job in a relatively short period of time, and we're catching up with the backlog from during the pandemic. So in short, it's not a long period of time.
Doctor, I don't want to blindside you with this question, but just when you see overall how things are moving forward with the federal government announcing the new dental program, which will phase in, and now it's with under a certain age, and then it's going to phase in by I think 2025. How will that impact the health units portion of this dental, seniors dental, or any of the programs that the health unit is looking after?
It's still unclear.
Okay. I assume that.
The federal program, and again, I'm not the expert in it, has my understanding many criteria need to be met, and with the notion that the money can be clawed back if the processing down the road shows that the person could not provide the information, and it's related to a certain level of income that is not very 100% aligned with what we provide through our program. So I can see that people would still come to our program in the near future, depending what the federal program is going to evolve and prove to be. We will see how it's going to work out.
Okay. Thank you for that. Any other questions then on the October report? And we'll move her then for the October report, please. We'll see Helen Clare's hand up to move the October report. And Mr. Milne, Warden Milne, any further discussion then on the October report? All in favor? That's carried. Now, thanks, Kevin. Now we're down to other business. Presentation of the logo launch. Who will be doing this, Doctor?
That could be with Nelson. Nelson is coming in very soon.
Morning, Nelson. How are you? Good. Hey, everybody.
All right, let's jump right in.
Floor is yours.
Thank you. So today's a bit of an exciting day. I get to announce the launch of our new brand identity package, particularly the logo. So we're going to roll out the beginning of this launch with a digital launch of our new logo starting on Monday. Right on. So here's a little bit of a chronological timeline of where we've come from and where we are now. It's a bit of a history back when we were Bruce Gray owned Sound Health Unit. Just kind of some updates throughout the past. Back in about 1994, was the last time that our brand was looked at. And then now we've kind of updated. It's a bit of an homage to our past, as well as kind of taken some elements from our current and blended them together for our future. Here's kind of a look at some real world examples of how it's going to look. Just kind of putting it on some different faces. There's some signage, stationery. I'm working with IT right now to kind of overhaul our website, working on some content edits there as well, trade show tents, social media, stationery, corporate stuff, that kind of thing, as well as colors. So the logo itself, the main element is an artistic rendition of the Grey Bruce region, encompassing both Bruce County and Grey County, kind of a fresh modern throwback to our first logo from the 80s. The hexagon shape here represents the balance of nature. It's typically been an expression of energetic charges throughout history, also been found organically in nature. It's one of the principal governing patterns found in the natural world. Six-sided shapes have been used in symbology dating back centuries. Represented changes for long-term good, controlled crisis, potential for humans to unite and heal seem very fitting. And as well, our big name change, it's kind of subtle because of our current logo, which we're kind of known as public health. It was the primary dominant force there. This will help us to further differentiate from Grey Bruce Health Services. This way, we're working with SEO in mind to hopefully generate a bit of authority online, help bring us up first. And that's about it for me. We're really excited to roll it out. It will begin on Monday with a digital share, and it will continue to roll out through our physical assets, through forms, reports, all kinds of that. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, thanks, Nelson. Questions? Dr. Eric.
Just want to thank Nelson and the communication team for their work on this. Nelson single-handedly made all the changes, and this is something that I believe will serve our mission and our communication for the years to come. Worth mentioning that was all done in-house, no external expert, although the internal expert would overshadow many of the external firms that we can dream of hiring. And last meeting, I mentioned that the electronic launch will not cost us anything because we will be moving to our website. There is a plan to do all this with the update of the system, the 365. One of my IT staff corrected me, said there's actually saving of 10,000 going to that website instead of the current website. So that's on the digital part. On the physical part, all the forms that we already have will be used and phased gradually when we introduce the new one. It would be a new sticker to put on the old form, the two logos together. So practically we did it with the least amount of expense, if not saving in certain areas.
Other comments? Streckles.
Just the way the dots are formed there on the, is that a representation of the amount of use that Grey Bruce local unit has on the peninsula there and Mr. McKeever's territory, or population, or just how important that part of it is and how much the dots fade further east we go in Grey County?
We're dots and Bruce.
It's been great, so responsibility for the bill, or
Doesn't yet to know that somebody's gonna pay.
Nothing. So it doesn't apply anything. It's just the way it kind of worked out digitally. It was used making with a gradient tool. So that's just the way it kind of happened. That's all I know.
I like it.
Thank you.
Yes. Because of course, any one of these that comes out, I remember doing the branding and with Grey County, and I think when Bruce County did theirs and a whole bunch of numbers come out there, there's always going to be a few people that are not inclined to accept change well. But this one, I can defend it very honestly very well. I think it looked great.
I always thought the dots are the snowfall. From 2 weeks to
That would make sense. Yeah. Then our friends over in the Blue Mountain will be very upset because they make snow all the time over there.
I also like it, and I think it's very unique. It won't be any time at all before, when you see that logo, you'll know what it is. Similar to the Saugeen Conservation with their logo, I can now see it without the words. Like, it just takes a little while and you pick right up on it, so I like it.
Thank you.
Through Mr. Chair, I was thinking if in 5 to 10 years, we can get the logo recognized according to Nelson's estimate, it will be less than 2 years with the digital launch. And it's worth mentioning, you look at big logos across the world, when they started, they were not big. Nike, I was reading about the history. The logo design cost Nike $38. It was designed in a and they couldn't afford trying another one, so they accepted the Nike swoosh. And later, that designer actually got a gift from Nike down the road, a diamond ring or something to that effect, because of her design. So again, we really don't need to be a huge entity to have to aim for a logo that's memorable.
Certainly.
Thanks, Nelson. I think, first glance at it, obviously you see the gray roof, so that identifies it. And then when you look at the other part of the logo with the outline photo of the two counties, it's very clear what we're talking about with that. But yeah, I think it looks good moving forward. So, okay, any other comments from anyone?
It's gonna be a bit of home run.
Yeah.
Appreciate it very much.
Okay, thanks very much, Nelson.
Thank you. Thanks for your time.
Yes. Okay, so we'll move on then to under other business, association number 10.2, Dr. Era, I assume you're taking that one?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. 2 items that came from Alpha, the orientation manual is very consistent with the orientation that we will be providing in January for the new board and governance to. Both of them recommended to be on the agenda for the board. And again, there's nothing unique about it. It's normal business for the board and the orientation aspect of it.
Okay, any questions on it whatsoever? Okay. In the audience, seeing nothing from any of the board members not here. 10.3 is planned for recognition of departing board members. Here.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is an item that we had planned for November, a farewell for recognition for the departing member, and due to the election and the quorum, that meeting was canceled. So it's just a notion that we will have planned for the next spring, most likely to invite these members for recognition.
Okay. Questions, comments? Okay, seeing nothing. Need a motion to adopt any of that, Kaylee, or is that we're good with just accepting that way? Okay, so that then takes us down to the in camera. So at this point, we will stop the live streaming and
Take the resolution first. Sure. It's not live stream.
what that is,
Pass the resolution and open.
yes, to come back, yeah, to come back, sorry.
To go in.
Yeah. Okay, have a motion then to
Nick has
move in
a-
camera.
Nick has a comment.
Oh, sorry, Nick. Go ahead.
No worries, no worries. Before you go into this closed session, I'd just like to take this time and wish each and every one of you a very Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays. All the best to your families and communities, and may you all find peace on your journey, because as this is a closed matter, I know that I'm going to be asked to leave. And like I said, from my family to yours and from our community here at Neoshingaming, I'd like to just wish those best tidings to each and every one of you and your families and communities. Thank you.
Thanks, Nick.
Thank you.
Merry Christmas, Nick.
Same to you and your family as well, on behalf of the board. Thanks, Nick. Okay, so I need a resolution then to move in camera, moved by Luke, second by Kevin. That's
That was the recording from Nick. I'll still play.
okay. So Kaylee, when we go back to regular session, do you have a decision on the January meeting? From the doodle pool?
No, I know that January 20th doesn't work for many, so it was looking like either January 13th or we could do early February. So whatever is the preference for all individuals. For how
Doodle pool note, so I wasn't sure whether all the results were in yet or.
No.
Just through point of order. We had a motion to return to open session. And the statement was back in open session, Mr. Chair, before we get on to new business. Following procedures from the municipal act, we should do that before we get on to.
We're not streaming yet.
Yes, we are.
You're doing now? Okay, so we are back in the regular session. For now, and so I asked Haley then, not doing cool that we don't have the results in yet. Okay,
No.
so we'll keep everybody.
Or on what occurred.
Okay, and my apologies.
Yeah.
So during the in-camera session, we discussed only the items that were on the agenda.
One item is addressed in all of them.
Okay.
Yeah.
So then on the issue of the January meeting, we do not have a decision as of yet. So when that is finalized, it will be forwarded then to all the board members. The January 20th date definitely will not be the date of the meeting. So hopefully everyone received that email to do the Google pool 13th.
Perfect. Okay, so that's good to know.
And if anyone needs it resent, then I can ask Kaden to.
Okay. So I'll send it a new.
Okay, on the agenda, see nothing else before the board. So just, I guess for our viewing audience and just on behalf of the board, we'd like to wish everyone the best of the seasons and however you celebrate the holidays. Hopefully, wish good health to everyone and prosperity into next year.
I like your optimism.
Well, yeah, it's trying times all around, and the more positive, obviously, we can keep things ahead. So anyway, with that, then I'll look for a motion to adjourn this meeting. Moved by Ward Milne, second by Ward Peabody, we adjourn. All in favor? That's carried. So again, best wishes to everyone.
Merry Christmas, everybody.
Merry Christmas.
Yes.
Doodly doo.